Yeah, so the fact this is in Dallas, is that one of the big appeals for you, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, Dallas is a great sports city, as you know, and people are love their sport there, and there's, I don't know if people know that there's a great it's a really good triathlon scene in Dallas, and always has been, and so I think that's great for the event, but certainly great for the city as well. I think you'll see lots of folks coming out to really enjoy. Families and kids in particular are really big into sport in the Dallas area, and we're starting to see, or we've seen over the last several years, more kids getting involved in the sport of triathlon. As an alternative to your sort of ball and bat sports, and so I think it's a great venue for the event.
Would you have done a lot of this level of distance running when you were training, or we obviously saw you on the track running much shorter distances, but how far would you have run in training?
No, so as a sprinter, I think people tend to think, people tend to lump all runners into together, but sprinting is a completely different type of sporting event than, say, people who are also in our sport, who are 10,000 meter runners, 5,000 meter runners, marathon athletes who may get a little bit closer to what they're doing in triathlon as endurance athletes. But obviously sprinting is not an endurance event, much different skill levels. So furthest I would go and practice as a 200 and 400 meter sprinter, the furthest I would go and practice is 600 meters. But obviously repeats of those, you're focusing much. Endurance just isn't even a component of sprinting. It's all about power, speed, and then there is an endurance aspect to trying to sustain a high level of speed for as long as you can, which isn't going to be more than 30 seconds or so. So it's a very different thing there. But when it comes to training, and certainly in my business of sports performance, there are more similarities when it comes to athletes training, regardless of what sport they're in, from an athletic standpoint, than there are differences. So, when it comes to, every athlete is trying to generate more power, increase speed, increase endurance, increase flexibility and mobility, those sorts of things. But I think that there's also, it's very interesting for me. You look at sports like triathlon, where where does the skill versus the athleticism fall on that spectrum? Where you've got sports that are some sports are much more focused on the athleticism, and track and field would be one of those, and certainly the sprinting. But when you're on the bike and swimming, and you're trying to focus on efficiency from those perspectives, skill starts to take over as well and becomes a huge component. So, that's where my curiosity comes in, having not been in the sport myself, just kind of curious as to, how athletes, approach that balance when it comes to training, the skill of that sport versus the athleticism.
I think it's interesting as well. We're looking at athletics. It's not on TV as much in the UK. We obviously love seeing you on the BBC when you're on, but it's not on as much as it should be and was when I was a young man. And it's something like this shows that you can almost rebrand it in a way and do something different with athletics. Could all of athletics learn from this, maybe?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And that's what interested me really in what PTO is doing here, is trying to take these amazing athletes who have dedicated their lives to this sport and producing amazing performances, and it's not for lack of just like with track and field, it's not for lack of interest in those sports. It's the people outside of those sports who aren't currently fans haven't been exposed to those sports enough, and that's up to typically up to governing bodies and leagues of sports to do that sort of thing. But until you have a professional sports body, you're not going to get that. It's very difficult. Federations are not set up to promote sports and grow the audience of sports. Federations are set up to be this democratic body that manages member organizations, which are usually the different countries of that federation, especially when it's an international federation like World Athletics as an example. So it takes a professional organization like PTO, or you're seeing that in lacrosse now here in this country, or professional lacrosse organizations. You're seeing that with, people tend to kind of, in track and field as an example, which again shares the same problem that PTO is solving for triathletes, not enough exposure, not enough money in the sport to treat these great athletes as professionals. In my sport, people continue to go, oh, we should be more like Formula One and have a drive to survive, or that sort of thing, which helped that sport, to gain notoriety in this country. The problem is that, that's a great example of how Formula One is not, run by the FIA, which is the governing body and federation for auto sport. That's a completely separate organization, Formula One, a privately owned entity that's out there to drive, viewership and sponsorship dollars and that sort of thing. So, that's again, that's what really interested me in what PTO is doing, because they're doing that exact thing, sort of separating away from, the sort of governing body sort of, role that, and really focusing on professionalizing the sport and understanding, what promotion is all about and what drives viewership, and which is exactly what we need to do in track and field as well.